This pattern is confirmed in Linear A. For instance, Kappa Saratu, Granum 976. It means Galba wishes or Galba demands 976 talents of wheat grain. Long before the rise of archaic and classical Greece, there existed in Crete and on some Aegean islands a mysterious civilization, the Minoan civilization, known for its huge palaces built around a central court with vibrant frescoes, beautiful decorated pottery, and refined and delicate artifacts. That civilization had an elusive script that remained undeciphered since its discovery at the beginning of the 20th century. It is Minoan Linear A. In this series, we'll explore what we know about Linear A and the continuous quest to unlock its mysteries. I welcome you to join me as I present my decipherment of Minoan Linear A. Thank you for joining me in episode 4 of my podcast series on the decipherment of Minoan Linear A. I start this episode with focusing on the striking parallels between Hesiod's Theogony and the Hurrian myth of the kingdom in heaven and the Song of Ullikummi. Then I shall move on to some Linear A tablets where Hurrian gods are mentioned in a very special way. In 1943, Heinrich Otten published the cuneiform texts of the myth about the Hurrian god Kumarbi, together with other mythological fragments in Keilschrifturkunden aus Bogatskö, KUB 33. 3 years later, Hans Güterbock published his groundbreaking monograph Kumarbi, myth about the Hurrian Kronos, composed, translated, and provided with commentary on the basis of the Hittite fragments. Zurich, New York, 1946. He put the results of his comparisons together in a table shown on the screen. Hans Güterbock thought, in the light of the state of research in 1946, that the Oriental origin of the Kronos myth could be regarded as solidly confirmed, and that the Hittite texts and their Hurrian predecessors were the first literary recording of these myths. He realized that the Phoenician influence on Greek mythology appeared in a new light, since the Phoenicians were, in his view, no longer the creators but the intermediaries of these myths. But was contact between Mycenaean Greeks and Ugarit, or as was often thought later, contact between archaic Greece and Phoenicia in the period of Greek colonization, circa 800 to 600 BC, the real source of transmission? Since Hurrians played a dominant part in Minoan civilization, it seems preferable and more satisfactory to explain the parallels between Hesiod's Theogony and the Hurrian myth of the kingdom in heaven and the Song of Ullikummi through close contacts between Mycenaean Greeks and Hurrian Minoans in Crete during the Bronze Age than by later contacts of Greeks with the Near East and Asia Minor in historical times. This explanation is even more likely if one realizes that the stories told by Hesiod do not give the impression of a recent transmission through contacts of colonization and commerce in the age of Hesiod during the 8th century BC, but suggest that they were already deeply embedded in Greek religion and daily life. When I visited Cambridge during the Falkland crisis to give an extensive paper on progress in Linear A research to the Field Club of the Department of Archaeology of the University of Cambridge, I got the opportunity, in the company of Dr. Richard Janko, to discuss this matter with Professor G.S. Kirk of Trinity College, and we agreed upon the issue. By calling Hurrian Kumarbi the Hurrian Kronos in the subtitle of his book, Hans Güterbach instantly drew attention to the striking parallels between Hesiod's Theogony and the Hurrian myth of the kingdom in heaven and the song or epic of Ullikummi. I quote the parallels as described by G.S. Kirk. Myth. Its meaning and functions in ancient and other cultures. Cambridge, 1971. The Hurrian version. Anu, heaven, is castrated by Kumarbi as he flees up to the sky. Kumarbi swallows Anu's phallus, is made pregnant by it, has embryos in his belly, spits out some of them, which are brought to birth, probably by earth. Stormgod Teshub discusses with Anu how to be born from Kumarbi. Kumarbi wants to eat his son. Stormgod is born from good place. Something about a stone in the text. Stormgod rules. Kumarbi is displaced, but foments new rebellion using Ullikummi, product of his seed and a rock. The Greek version or versions. Uranos, heaven, keeps his children in Gaia, earth, by persistent mating. Uranos is castrated by Kronos from within Gaia's vagina. Kronos swallows his children as they are born from Gaia, has children in his belly. Blood from Uranos' wounds impregnates earth with Erinyes, giants, Median nymphs, falls in sea, engenders Aphrodite. Kronos is persuaded by Rhea to swallow stone instead of infant Zeus. Kronos vomits up children through his mouth. Stone comes up first, is worshipped at Delphi. Zeus rules. Kronos is displaced to Tartarus with Titans, but Gaia bears Typhoeus, source of new rebellion, product of Kronos' seed, according to the B. Scholium on Iliad 2, 783, or of Tartarus according to Hesiod. Actually, the Hurrian version of the Song of or Epic of Ullikummi is published by Mirio Salvini. Smia 18, 1977. The name of the monster Ullikummi, Ullukummi in Old Hurrian, means destroy, Kummi, O monster. The Hurrian verbal root ul means to destroy. It is allegedly a rock of green diorite created by Kumarbi in order to annihilate the city of Kummi and the kingdom of Teshub. Stormgod rules. Kumarbi is displaced, but foments new rebellion using Ullikummi, product of his seed, and a rock. Hurrian Kummi, Kume, Kuma, or Kumia, in the region of Kitsuwatna in East Anatolia, is a cult town of the storm god Teshub and his father Kumarbi, Kumarbi. To me it seems more attractive to interpret be or we in Kumarbi, Kumarbi, not as the genitive suffix be or we, as some scholars have done, but as part of the Nutzian variant erbi, as a result of metathesis of Avery, Ivory, Lord in the Tushrata letter and elsewhere, so that the meaning of Kumarbi, Kumarbi, from Kuma erbi, as a result of contraction, is Lord of Kuma, and that of Kumarbini is the Lord of Kuma, with the suffix ni marking the definite article. The variant erbi may not be limited to Nutsi. One may, for instance, compare the variant ermi, ermi, Lord, at Nippur. See P.M. Perf's Nutsi personal names. In this way, the etymology of Kumarbi contributes to a better understanding of the mythological struggle between Kumarbi as Lord of Kuma and his son Teshub, who conquered and mutilated his father, but also succeeded him as the new Lord of Kuma. Teshub is therefore called Kumeni. Dingir up, uru abrapchini, uru komeni. KBO 2028 8. Storm god Teshub, god of the city of Arabha, and god of the city of Kuma. Uru is the Sumerogram for city. Nutsi belongs to the kingdom of Arabha that may well have been dependent on Mitanni. Jean-Pierre Olivier, Gorilla 1, 1976, read Sidu 69 Kumi in the first line of the incomplete Linear A tablet HT 110A from Ayatriada, whereas Jacques Raison and Maurice Pope, 1994, read Sidu blank Kumi HT 110A1, followed by Hardeum plus E20. It may be significant that Hardeum follows Linear A Kumi, since the Italian mycenologists M. V. Cremona, D. Marcozzi, E. Scava, and M. Sinatra, la toponomastica cretese nei documenti in Linear B, di Knossos, Rome 1978, have established that the toponyms mentioned in the Linear B Knossos tablets are frequently followed by the grain ideogram granum or the barley ideogram hordeum. Tablet HT 110A shows fractures and even a hole where Raison Pope read an illegible sign or possibly the fraction sign J. The bisyllabic value mina has been proposed for Linear A sign 69 that resembles Linear B sign 34. Whether one reads Sidu blank vertifider Kumi or Sidu mina vertifider Kumi HT 110A1, a vertifider seems likely before Kumi, that I identify as the Minoan Hurrian toponym Kumi, most likely derived from the name of the Anatolian city of Kuma, Kumi, Kumia. If Sidu Mina is the correct reading, it can be interpreted as the Old Hurrian personal name Sidu Mina. Curse the deceased twin, O God, consisting of the Hurrian verbal root zit, to curse, plus the Old Hurrian theme vowel u, plus the A stem mena, mina, twin. Sidu mina is in that case a so-called replacement name, because the new baby replaced a deceased child. Minoan Hurrian Kumi may well be derived from the Hurrian root kum, to build, erect, create, and it can hardly be distinguished from the modern Cretan place Komos on the south coast of Crete, that happens to be identified as the Minoan harbour of the palaces of Phaistos and Hyatriada, excavated by the Canadian archaeologist Joseph W. Shaw and his team. There are also some Hurrian personal names with the same root kum, attested at Hyatriada. Linear A Kumeta HT 51b 1 can be analyzed as the Hurrian one-word personal name kum eta, build, create, me, O God. Linear A Kumaro HT 96 A5 occurs in a list of personal names on a tablet from Hyatriada. It can be analyzed as Old Hurrian Kumarom, consisting of the Hurrian verbal root kum, to build, erect, create, plus factative and iterative root extension r, plus Old Hurrian marker of the transitive past or perfect form o, plus Old Hurrian marker of the subject of action m. This final m is omitted in Linear A because final consonants are not expressed in Linear A and B. Translation he, she, m, namely the father, mother, or a god, has built, created the child, a child, again and again. The iterative aspect of r may refer to the fact that many children were born in that family. That Kumi is indeed a linear A toponym is confirmed by attestation of the linear A ethnic Kuma 96, that is equals Kumarbi, HT 21-2 from Ayatriada, equals Hurrian ethnic Kumarbi, man of Kuma, derived from the toponym Kumi. Linear A Kumarbi, HT 28-2, can morphologically be compared with linear A Kappa, HT 6A 4-5, formerly transliterated as Kappa, as if the Mycenaean Greek and Indo-European labiovelar value kwe could straightaway be copied to its linear A graphic counterpart. Une relation entre le linéaire B et le linéaire A, une étude mycénienne, acte du colloque international sur les textes mycéniens, Gift sur Yvette, 1956, page 265, Piero Mericchi remarked, "The language seems to be of an inflectional type. One has the impression that kwe is attached to the end of certain words. Kumina, kumina kwe, kappa, kappa kwe, saro, sara kwe, etc., with a copulative value, which could perhaps, but not necessarily, tend to the idea of an Indo-European language." Michel Lejeune's reply to this remark, Étude mycénienne 267, is sharp-witted and pertinent in every respect. Other remark, pertaining to methodology. The identification of an enclitic copulative kwe would evidently be of high interest. However, in the first place, it presupposes that the linear A idiom possessed labiovelar sounds. It may also be totally possible that the linear B signs qua equals pa2 and kwe, originating from the linear A scripts, were subjected to an adjustment to Greek phonetism, starting from the linear A values that were not used in Greek. In second place, the context should make it evident that kwe in linear A is a copulative and not a suffix or a case ending. I am still surprised how accurate and well considered Michel Lejeune offered already in 1956 the right arguments and formulated the whole phonetic process that the Mycenaean Greek scribes unfolded when they started to use the linear A signs reflecting the Hurrian voiced velar fricatives cha and ge for the Mycenaean labiovelar sounds qua and kwe, respectively. Hurrian doesn't have labiovelar sounds, but since the Hurrian voiced velar fricatives were not used in Greek, the linear A signs for these sounds could be used for the linear B signs qua and kwe. Indeed, the linear A signs cha and ge and linear B signs qua and kwe had the velar aspect in common. A velar sound is pronounced with the back of the tongue near the soft palate. Latin velaris, from velum, veil. The labiovelars in Mycenaean Greek formed a separate group of occlusives. The Linear B script didn't distinguish the voiceless from the voiced and aspirate labiovelar stops. So Linear B sign qua represented Mycenaean Greek qua, gwa, or gwa, and Linear B sign kwe represented Mycenaean Greek kwe, gwe, and gwe. It is clear that the sign kwe in Linear B represented a labiovelar sound. It is also clear that Linear B needed the labiovelar signs to represent the labiovelar sounds of Mycenaean Greek. If, however, kwe in Linear A, kappa kwe in HT 6a 4-5 represented an enclitic copulative, it would be inexplicable why the whole list of sequences following kappa datara HT 6a 1, probably all indicating persons, fails to contain kwe as its final syllabic sign, except kappa kwe. Since an L is not expressed before an occlusive in Linear A and B, Linear A kappa ch can be interpreted as Hurrian syllabic cuneiform galba ch equals alphabetic cuneiform glb ch, man of Galba, derived from the Linear A toponym kappa, Hurrian Galba, Galap in Semitic, Aleppo. But Linear A Galba does most likely not refer to the famous city of Aleppo in Syria, but to the ancient Minoan Hurrian name of modern Ayatriada, which means Holy Trinity. I mentioned some arguments for identification of Linear A kappa as a toponym. Kappa is first entry of HT 6A1, HT 94A1, HT 102 1, HT 105 1, and possibly in damaged HT 45A1. It also occurs in HT 8B4 and HT 145. Kappa is one of the most frequent sequences in Linear A, but significantly, it only occurs in the Linear A tablets of Ayatriada. Kappa granum, KNE 71, also occurs in the Linear B texts from Knossos and has been identified as a toponym because of occurrence of the Linear B ethnic Kapayo, Fair 3, KN X 5752, etc., with the Greek ethnic suffix yos. Many Linear B tablets from Knossos start with the sequence Knossos, Knossos, and many Linear B tablets from Pylos, Greek mainland, begin with Pylos, indicating the actual place where the palace archives were stationed and traffic of people and goods was registered. It has been observed in Linear B that toponyms are often followed by the grain ideogram, granum. For instance, kappa, granum, KNE71, or the barley ideogram, hordeum, and sometimes by ideograms of other commodities as well. This pattern is confirmed in Linear A. For instance, kappa saratu, granum 976, HT 102 1-2. It means Galba wishes or Galba demands 976 talents of wheat grain. Since Linear A and B sign Ra2 represents Ria or Lia, Linear A Sa Ra2 can be analyzed as Hurrian Sa Ria. He, she, it wishes, demands, consisting of the Hurrian verbal root shar, to wish, to request, to demand, plus the marker of transitivity I, plus the marker of the acting third person singular of the transitive verb a. Hurrian shar equals Hittite wewak, to request, demand, and Akkadian ereshum, to wish, desire, demand. Sa-ra-tu is not, surprisingly, one of the most frequent sequences in Linear A. If my identification of kappa g HT 6A 4-5 on the same tablet that starts with kappa HT 6A1 and possibly again on HT 143 is correct, and if it should be read as the Hurrian ethnic name Galpage, or as a personal name derived from the ethnic, it would be the Linear A equivalent to the Linear B ethnic Kapayo. Kapage may be equated with the Hurrian ethnic Galbage in the main cuneiform syllabary and with Galbage in the cuneiform alphabet from Ugarit, man of Galba, with Hurrian ethnic suffix gi, ge. See Emmanuel Laroche, Glossaire de la langue ourite. Alphabetic cuneiform ge in Galbage shows that the syllabic intervocalic ge single writing in Galbage represents voiced velar fricative or spirant in medial position that must be distinguished from the voiceless velar fricative ge in initial position in both syllabic and alphabetic cuneiform. The initial ge in syllabic cuneiform Galbage seems at first sight the same phoneme as the second ge in medial position, but the first is voiceless and the second voiced, as ge and ge in alphabetic cuneiform Galbage clearly show. If my join of kane, ak 3a1, with A, ak 1b 1, on a tiny fragment from Archanes, is correct. Gorilla 3 mentions that AK1, AK2 and AK3 were inscribed by the same scribe. The resulting sequence Akane represents exactly the toponym Archanes, where the villa of Archanes was excavated by Yannis and Avi Zakalarakis, and where the Linear A Archanes tablets were found. This corroborates the evidence that the habit of mentioning the place where the tablets were written, preferably at the beginning of a tablet, was probably inherited by the Linear B scribes from their Linear A colleagues. So next to Linear A Kumi, Linear A and B Kappa is the second Minoan site, named after a famous predominantly Hurrian city in the Near East. It is historically and linguistically significant that all three important Minoan sites in the Mesara Valley, Phaistos included, have Hurrian names. We shall later discuss Phaistos. Occurrence of Linear A Sare 96 equals Sare Chi, man of sorrow, on the same tablet confirms identification of Kumarbi as an ethnic. Linear A Sarechi with ethnic suffix chi is indeed equivalent to Saroge, HT 62 plus 73 3. The join was made by Maurice Pope. That can be interpreted as the Hurrian ethnic Saroge, man of sorrow, derived from the Linear A toponym Saro, probably to be identified with Cretan Zaros, north of Phaistos and Ayatriada. The fact that Saro occurs so often in Linear A of Ayatriada suggests that Saro might well be a toponym, I think. The orthographic differences between Linear A Sarechi and its equivalent Saroge can be ascribed to the common phenomenon of vowel harmony. Equivalence of the ethnics Sarechi and Saroge offers a confirmatory identification for the decipherment of Linear A sign 96 as chi, and probably also for the same value of its variant Linear A sign 68. The A site of HT24 contains personal names followed by quantities of wool indicated by the ligatures ma plus ru and ma plus ru me. It differs from the B side that registers theonyms and 3 times the ideogram talentum. Can it be accidental that the Linear A partial ligature si me ki and ligature ka plus ya occur on the B side of the same Linear A tablet, HT24? Apparently, the Hurrian theonym shi me ki occurs as Linear A si me ki, followed by the ideogram talentum 1 JE. J and E are both fraction signs. The Hurrian sun god Shimegi is attested in the absolutive in the Tushratta letter Mitanni 422 and with definite article ni and ergative suffix she me gi nish, the sun, or the sun god, in the Tushratta letter Mitanni 101, 106 and 425. The spelling she me gi at Hattusha is exactly identical with the Linear A orthography she me gi. Alphabetic cuneiform she me ge at Ugarit doesn't provide the vowels. Linear A si me ki could theoretically be a theonym used as a personal name, like si mi ka at Nutsi. There is also an old Hurrian personal name of a female weaver from Ashnakum, Tarim Shimika. Analysis Tarim Shimika, consisting of the transitive verbal root tar, to let burn, to set on fire, and intransitive tar, to burn, plus the marker of transitivity I, plus the old Hurrian marker of the acting subject M or B, he. Translation: the sun god Shimige or Shimegi, he sets on fire. Incidentally, Pierre Chantraine tells in his Dictionnaire étymologique de la langue grecque that the etymology of the pre-Greek term Tartaros is not clarified and that it is probably a loanword from the Near East. Since Hurrian nominal tari means fire, and the transitive verbal root tar, to let burn, to set on fire, and intransitive tar, to burn, I propose a Hurrian etymology for pre-Greek Tartaros, because I assume that it is derived from Hurrian tartari, with the athematic imperative tar, plus the absolutive vocative of nominal tari, fire, that offers the translation burn, O fire, not a bad name for the underworld in the sense of hell. Let's return to tablet HT24b. It seems most likely that Linear A si me ki, talentum 1JE, HT24b1, refers to the sun god himself, since the sequence is followed by Kaya, talentum 1, HT24b2, which gives the impression that the Hurrian sun god Shimegi and the Minoan predecessor of the goddess Gaia, Earth, are mentioned in exactly the same way. Linear A Gaia, HT24b2, can theoretically be interpreted as the Hurrian personal name Gaia at Nutsi. See I.J. Gelb, Nutsi personal names. Certainly, many Hurrian personal names are Theophorous. So one may wonder whether the Hurrian personal name Gaia might also be derived from a theonym. Emmanuel Laroche, Glossaire de la langue ourite, calls Kai a Theophorous onomastic term and refers to Nutsi personal names 222. Pierre Chantraine, Dictionnaire étymologique de la langue grecque, sub Gaia, neither Gaia nor Gaia have an established etymology. One has supposed that Gaia was a contamination of Ge with Aya and Maya. Simple hypothesis connected with the notion of Mother Earth. The combination of Simeki, HT24b1, and Kaya, HT24b2, with the ideogram talentum, which represents a very high value, seems to make interpretation of both names as theonyms preferable. Unfortunately, the left top corner of tablet HT24b, which may have contained another theonym, is broken off. There is only a small trace of a sign or a ligature visible in the top left corner of HT24b. But the ideogram talentum 1 JE HT24b1 following this trace is clearly visible. So we know that this sequence was also followed by talentum 1JE, so that we can conclude that it belonged to the same category as Simeki and Gaia. One can only speculate about the missing first theonym. Is it Kushur, the Hurrian god of the moon, or possibly Teshub himself, the god of the clouds? We also know that these 3 entries and 3 signs of talentum were the only entries of HT24b, because that side of the tablet is empty after Kaya talentum 1. In Asia Minor, Shimeki follows Kushur and is represented as a god at Yatsilikaya. See Heinrich Otten, Anatolia 4. Is it merely accidental that Menelaus proposes that the Trojans bring 2 lambs, a white ram for the sun god Helios, a black ewe for the goddess Ge, and that the Greeks bring another lamb for Zeus, Iliad Gamma 103-104, in order to sacrifice and swear an oath that a combat between Alexandros and himself will bring the Trojan War to an end. Linear A tablets HT24b and HT33 have a lot in common, since they use ligatures to describe Hurrian theonyms. See the decipherment of Minoan Linear A, Volume 1, Part 1, Chapter 11. Religious Linear A inscriptions. Interestingly, the last line of tablet HT33 from Ayatriada offers the rebus-like ideogram nubes plus p, cloud plus p, that I interpret as Teshupi, of Teshub, in the sense of belonging to Teshub, with the genitive suffix pv, followed by the high number 100, HT33-4. Then follows a ligature que padri with the linear B values, is G pa free with the linear A values, Gebat, also followed by the high number 100, HT33-4. Jacques Raison and Maurice Pope, Index transnuméré du Linéaire A, Louvain 1977, analyzed the combination of signs as Oliva plus P, HT 33-4. Frankly, I do not consider their analysis convincing. The sign preceding P looks like the design of a cloud that I have identified as ideogram nubes cloud. That has nothing to do with sign 49, Oliva. Louis Godard and Jean-Pierre Olivier, Gorilla 5, registered the sign as Hapax 341. An indication is that the number following ligature nubes plus P is 100, as in the case of G plus Pa 3, 100, equals Gebat 100. If ideogram nubes cloud refers to the god of the clouds, Teshub, it is clear that the consorts Teshub and Gebat receive each a sacrifice of 100 oxen, that the Greeks later called a hekatombe. Jugum 90, that equals 90 yokes, at the beginning of line 4, is probably related to the cattle. The genitive teshupi of Teshub probably tells that the 90 yokes belong to Teshub. Homer describes Teshub's Greek counterpart Zeus likewise, Dios nephele geritao, of Zeus the cloud gatherer, Iliad Epsilon 631, and nephele gerita Zeus, Zeus the cloud gatherer, Odyssey Alpha 63. Sign P, following ideogram nubes, may well be the result of assimilation from up-v to up, with doubled p, so evidently voiceless. E.A. Spicer, Introduction to Hurrian, described the whole process in a splendid way. If the combination nubes plus p represents the genitive teshupi of Teshub, the cloud gatherer, it reminds us of the use of phonetic complements attached to a somerogram in cuneiform. For instance, both dingir u up and dingir im up stand for dingir te eshu up. Dingir utu ki stands for dingir si me ki. And dingir utu gi stands for dingir si me gi. Dingir utu kini stands for dingir si me kini, the sun god. If in a Hittite text the somerogram N, Lord, Master, was used to express the Hittite word ischas, the context made it sometimes clear whether N indicated the subject, object, or indirect object of a verb. But if this wasn't clear, the Hittite case endings could be added to the somerogram. For instance, ischas is the nominative subject case of the Hittite word for Lord. Ischan the accusative object case, and ischi the dative indirect object case. These could be written as N-ash, N-an, and N-i, respectively. See Theo van den Hout, The Elements of Hittite, Cambridge 2013. This rebus-like way of writing is also found in the description of Sharuma as Dingir Lugal Ma equals Sharuma in cuneiform. Sumerogram Lugal king equivalent to Akkadian Sharu king. It was the occurrence of the ligature G plus Pa 3 that, and the high number 100, HT 33-4, that led me to a eureka moment of recognition, since I suddenly realized that an ideogram of a cloud plus P was just a simple means to describe the god of the clouds, Teshub. An important advantage of recognition of the combination the god of the clouds, Teshub 100, preceding Gepa 100, is the implicit external confirmation that linear A sign 91, graphically identical with linear B sign 78, Kwe, equals cuneiform G. As a result, it is legitimate to transliterate linear A sign 91 as G equals voiced velar fricative plus E, no longer as the equivalent of linear B Kwe, which reflects labiovelar plus E. The linear A K signs represent palatal K and G, but also a voiceless velar fricative, initial G, and intervocalic G. Likewise, the linear B K signs represent kappa, gamma, chi. It is also interesting that the name of Gebat is not only attested in the linear A ligature G plus Pa 3, HT 33-4, but also in the dative form G Pita, HT 6A6, on a tablet from Ayatriada. Hurrian assimilated G Pita from unassimilated G-bit Wa. The combination of sequences Da-Ge-Ra, vertifider G-Pita, HT 6A6, can be interpreted as with a man for Gebat, G-bit, since Da-Ge-Ra may be analyzed as Hurrian Da-Ge-Ra, that equals Dage, man, combined with the Hurrian commutative suffix Ra. He may be a man taking part in Gebat's cult, possibly a priest. The commutative suffix Ra in Da-Ge-Ra expresses together with. On another tablet we find Da-Ge-Ra vertifider Dame, HT 121. That equals Da-Ge-Ra vertifider Dalme with a man, Mr. Great, because Dalme means great. Since Gebat, Gepet, Gepit are variants, it is justifiable to assume that the same process of assimilation as can be observed with the genitive form in ve, vi, also took place with the dative in wa. On the analogy of the assimilated genitive form of gebat, gebati, written dingir ge pa ati, from unassimilated gebat wi, dingir ge pa at wi, compare gebat wi, we may assume that linear A gepita equals assimilated ge pa ata, from unassimilated ge pa at wa. According to Emmanuel Laroche, Glossaire de la langue ourite, gebet, gebat, is the spouse of Teshub. Hittite hieroglyphic, now Luwian hieroglyphic, Gepatu. Yatsilikaya number 43. Absolutive, vocative, Gebat. KBO 2:21:14. Alphabetic cuneiform Gebete. The alphabetic directive is attested as gebete de. The form dage, man, is opposed to aste, asti, woman. Compare Hurrian asti, da agi pa, da agi it, asti pa. A woman for a man for a woman. KBO 20:129 plus 2:67. Many Hurrian personal names with the element dagi, man, are attested in the Near East. For instance, dage, man, one person at Ashnakum, 9 at Mari, 1 at Katara, 3 at Shubat and Lil, Ta'age at Ashur, Ta'age at Alalach, 7 and 4, Ta'age and Ta'agi at Emar, Tagge with double ge, man, at Mari and Nutsi, Tagu and Tagagu at Emar, Da'agu at Nippur, Tagen, he, the man, the boy is a man, at Tutul and Alalach 4. Tagaka, he, the boy, is like a little man, at Nutsi. Tagaka Sheni, the brother, is like a little man, at Mari. In chapter 12, from undeciphered to deciphered linear A signs, I have proposed that linear A sign 96 and its graphic variant sign 68 represent the phonetic value chi. As a result, linear A da 96 PH 30b1 from Phaistos can be interpreted as da chi. Analysis da chi man. There are more confirmatory identifications between ge and chi within linear A discussed in that chapter. Linear A da 68t, HT 34:1 from Ayatriada, probably da chi te, containing the simple variant 68 of sign 96, that equals Chi, was unfortunately in the 2022 edition of the decipherment of Minoan Linear A still erroneously transliterated as da dute. I apologize for that error. The reading da dute is now obsolete and should be provided with a cross. Cross da dute. The correct reading of the personal name Dagite can be analyzed as Dagite and be translated as he, the boy, is a man, O Teshub. The head of the Hurrian pantheon is addressed in a rebus-like way as God of the Clouds on tablet HT 33. Avoidance of Teshub's full name is not a sign of disrespect. An extra advantage for the scribe was that he had to write two signs, nubes plus p, instead of three, Teshu p or Tesu p. We have discussed the use of epithets of Teshub, such as Ataiovaya, our father, on many libation tables, but also in the Tushrata letter. He is also once addressed as Inata on libation table IOZA6 from Yurtas, a contracted form in or en ata that can be explained from ini or eni ata or eni atani, God the Father, en a te ne, in alphabetic cuneiform in the lists of Hurrian gods at Ugarit, modern Ras Shamra, discussed in episode 3. To date, the linear B sign for Zu hasn't yet been identified, but there is a good chance that the rare linear A sign 65 can be identified with Zu. Not only because this phonetic value provides a good explanation for linear A T65, that equals T Shu, ZA 23 at Katotsakro, but because it also provides a feasible explanation for linear A Tai 65 in HT 9A 4-5 and HT 9B 4, HT 39 1. For if that sequence is interpreted as Ta-I-Tzu, it can be identified as the Hurrian personal name Ta-I-Tzu, Mansatuchlu at Nutsi, and son of Ataya, see Ignis Gelb, Nutsi personal names, 145. The orthography Te-Zu makes sense if one realizes that sh is normalized to z by Anne Drafcorn, Hurrians and Hurrian at Alalach. Sub Te-Zu, for instance, Te-Shu Ba. As a result, linear A Te-Zu, ZA23, could then be Teshub, since a final consonant is not expressed in linear A and B. It is unlikely that Kura, ZA24, following Te-Zu, ZA23, is a scribal error for frequent linear A Kuro, For the sequence Kura, AK-2-1 at Arganes, follows the Hurrian personal name Sidate immediately, and attestation at two different sites makes such an assumption less likely. Moreover, Kura, AK-2-1-2, does certainly not represent a summation. It may well represent the name of one of the bulls guarding the Hurrian weather god Teshub, attested as Gu Ura et Mesquene e Mar, the unpublished tablets of the Museum of Aleppo. It is also attested Dingir Gu Ura at Bokatskeu in a treaty between Suppiluliuma I and Mattivasa, KBO 1-1, reverse side 41. In this text, Gura is mentioned alongside with Seri. The deities Sheri, Tila, and Gui are divine bulls accompanying the Hurrian Hittite weather god. The Theophorous element Gura also occurs in the Nutsi onomastics. Arip Gura, see Galp, Nutsi personal names. Arip Gura can be analyzed as Old Hurrian Arip Gura, Guri or Gura, gives or gave, the boy. Incidentally, Gura is also a town in Hurrian territory. The power and influence of the Hurrian gods is not only visible in sanctuaries, temples, and shrines, but can be felt throughout society. So it isn't surprising that Hurrians gave their children often sentence names with a Theophorous onomastic element. Many Theophorous names contained the element Teshub that could be abbreviated to the hypochoristic forms Theia and Te. At Nutsi, 20 persons are attested with the name Sukri Teshub. See Ignis Kalp, Nutsi personal names. Linear A Sukiri Teia, HTZB 158b, on a large pythos, incised before firing, was found in Magazine 5, subjacent to the east foundations of the Megaron of the Villa of Hayatriada, on display in the Archaeological Museum of Heraklion. The inscription consists of 6 syllabic signs, which makes it unlikely that its identification is accidental. It can be analyzed as the Hurrian name Sukriteia, consisting of the root sugur, to bless, protect, plus the marker of transitivity I. The imperative doesn't have its own marker, plus hypochoristic Theia. Translation: bless the child, O Teshub. Actually, Linear A Sukirita, PHWA 32, site alpha, on a nodule from Phaistos, can be analyzed as the same Hurrian imperative Sukri plus the enclitic personal pronoun first person singular ta, me, indicating the object of the transitive verb. Translation: bless, protect me, O God. It happens to be an exact equivalent to Linear B Sukirita KNDB 1324 at alibi from Knossos, identified as a toponym Sukrita, because the Linear B ethnic Sukiritaio, probably Sukritaios, with the Greek ethnic suffix ios, is derived from it. The equation of Linear A Sukirita with Linear B Sukirita from Knossos makes identification of the Linear A sequence as a toponym attractive. However, since Linear A Sukirita PHWA 32 alpha is the only syllabic entry on the nodule, there's no conclusive contextual indication whether we are dealing with a verbal expression, protect or bless me, or a personal name meaning, bless me, or a toponym, also meaning bless me. In all three cases, the meaning remains the same. There's also a Linear B personal name, Sukirito, KN AS 1516 12. Sukritos, that may well be a Hellenized form in os, that is either related to the toponym Sukirita or may be the shortened Mycenaean rendering of the Linear A personal name Sukiritea and the Hurrian names Sukritea and Sukrite, both hypochoristics of the sentence name Sukriteshup. A fragmentary Linear A inscription Te Ya PYR ZB5 on a shirt of a clay vase from the Minoan country house at Perkos, Mertos, now in the Knossos Stratigraphical Museum, MP 7179, may well be the common Theophorous element Theia, hypochoristic of Teshup, as second element in a Hurrian name. For instance, such as Linear A Sukiriteia from Ayatriada, Linear A Oteia PK1A 4 bis, in a list of personal names on a tablet from Palaikastro, is another candidate. It can be identified as Unteia, written Unteia at Nutsi. Compare Ignace Gelb Nutsi personal names, analyzed as athematic un or on teia, equivalent to thematic intransitive indicative una teia. Teshup comes or Teshup came, or imperative come, O Teshup. But now preferably equivalent to thematic transitive imperative un ni teia, or Old Hurrian thematic transitive imperative unu teia, that both can be translated as bring the child, O Teshup. Intransitive un, to come, was known before the transitive root un, to bring. The large pythos from Ayatriada with Linear A Sukiriteia, HTZB 158b, actually contains another sequence. The sequences are incised on the shoulder in consecutive sections. The whole inscription is Tu se suki sukiriteia. I prefer the reading of Tu se suki, HTZB 158a, proposed by Louis Godard and Jean-Pierre Olivier, Gorilla 4, Paris 1982. If that reading is correct, interpretation of Linear A Tu se suki as a Hurrian personal name seems possible. The name is probably a Hurrian sentence name consisting of a verbal first element, tush e, and a nominal second element, shugi or zuki. According to Thomas Richter, VHN 321, the evidence is slight for the roots tush and tus that both can be analyzed as tos or tus. He analyzes the one-word name Tusaya, written Tusaya, at Mari as Tosh-aya, Tusha at Kanish as Tusha, Tusiya, at Ashnakum as Tushiya. The sentence name Tusa Naye at Mari is analyzed as Tusa Naye, and implicitly Tusha Na at Mari as Tusha Na. The horicity of the roots is very likely, since Naye, Naya, is a Hurrian deity, probably a goddess, whose name can be abbreviated to Na in personal names. Although the meaning of the verbal roots tush, tus is unfortunately not yet known, the Hurrian identity is clear. As for the Linear A form tushe suki, it is also important that a root cannot only be intransitive, as in tusha naye, tusha na, tusaya and tusha, with a as marker of intransitivity, but also transitive, as in tusia, with the marker of transitivity E or A. According to Thomas Richter, Shugi 1 occurs as second onomastic element in the name Teches Shuka, from Shushara, Techish Shugi A, and A is the essive. Lexicon, Tech, and Shugi. He, she, a god, may let Shugi thrive. He, she, a god, may save the boy. Which offers an excellent onomastic meaning. Although he admits that Shugi 1 and Shugi lintel cannot be completely excluded, he prefers the translation boy. Thomas Richter, Bibliographic Glossary of the Hurrian Language, mentions sub Shugi 2 that on account of a vocabulary list, Hurrian Sugi equals Akkadian sechru, boy, that is found in so-called one-word names such as Sukan, Mari, Shuki, Asnakum, Shuki, Suki, Mari, Suku, Suku, Mari, Sukashi, Mari. Analysis Suka, Ashe. Small size. May well provide a good meaning for a personal name. Suki, Suki may represent a superlative, the very small boy. Comparing Shugi and Zuki to, it is likely that we are dealing with variant writings of the same word. As a result, the analysis of linear A to she Suki HTZB 158A offers a personal name that probably contains an imperative to she, of which Shuki, the small boy, is the object. The partial translation is the small boy, O God. Linear A Akipiete KH 10 3-4 occurs on a tablet from Chania. Since the preceding personal name Ipasaya KH 10-3 has been discussed only briefly in episode 2, I shall discuss it more extensively in this episode. It is a perfect equivalent to the Hurrian hypochoristic anthroponym Ipsaya at Nutsi, written Ipsa-aya, Ipsa-a-a, with hypochoristic suffix ya. See Ignis Galp, Nutsi personal names. The orthographic conventions of linear A and B require for the consonant cluster ps in Ipsaya that the labial occlusive p must always be expressed, which is only possible by usage of a mute vowel a, borrowed from the syllable to which it belongs. In other words, the cluster psa can only be expressed in linear A by writing pa-sa. So the linear A form offers the spelling that is expected. Actually, it is significant that this form offers an external confirmation of the orthographic conventions as part of the decipherment of linear B by Michael Ventris. Ipsaya, the name of 18 persons at Nutsi, may there well be a hypochoristic of Ipsa-chalu, the name of 77 persons at Nutsi. See Ignis Galp, Nutsi personal names. There is an Ipsa-chalu, son of Artea, and an Ipsaya, son of Artea. There is also an Ipsa-chalu, son of Chama-ana, and an Ipsaya, son of Chama-ana. There is an Ipsa-chalu, son of Itchi-ista, and an Ipsaya, son of Itchi-ista. The Tushratta letter offers some verbal forms with the root ipsh. Mitanni 3, 19-20. U-na-a-la-an, she-e-ni-i-wu-u-a, ti-i-cha-ni-nish-cha-la-an, ipshu-shi-i-la-an. Analysis Unalan, Sheni-wu-va, Tigani ischi alan ipsosi la an. And they, that means the things, come to my brother Amenhotep III, and the indicated things have been pleasant. The reading concerning Ni is based on another passage in the Tushratta letter. The personal name Akipiete, KH 10324, on the same Linear A tablet from Chania, seems to contain the Old Hurrian verbal element agip, he, she, brings, and the Theophorous element te, hypochoristic of teshup, comparable with akip teshup, and the assimilated form akit teshup at Nutsi. The unassimilated form akip teshup analyzes agip teshup, teshup, he, brought the child, contains the consonant cluster pt or bt, which poses no problems in cuneiform writing, since that script has not only syllabic signs for the type consonant plus vowel, but also of the types vowel consonant and consonant vowel consonant. That is an essential difference with the Aegean syllabic scripts of class A and B that only have signs for open syllables. Incidentally, Old Hurrian agip would, in the idiom of the Tushratta letter, also called Mitanni Hurrian, have been agia. A Minoan scribe wishing to write agip te with Linear A had to write akipete, since occlusives always had to be expressed in Linear A and B consonant clusters. This means that the consonant cluster pt had to be expressed as pt if E is the vowel following T. But what could a scribe do if a syllabic sign for P failed in Linear A, or if it was so rare that it was hardly ever used? To date, a Linear A equivalent of Linear B sign 72, that equals P, hasn't yet been recognized. However, the rare Linear A sign 63 may be a good candidate for the value P. It is attested at Ayatriada, Knossos and Katotsakro, but not yet at Chania, where Akipiete occurs. The Linear A sequence key 63 Re, HT 37-4 from Ayatriada would indeed provide a plausible Hurrian formation ki pere that can be interpreted as Hurrian ki bere or ki bele, hunter, bird catcher, fowler. See Thomas Richter, Bibliographic Glossary of the Hurrian Language. Sub kebiri, bogatskeu, keviri, someone who has set a trap. See Gerno Wilhelm, 1991. Compare Ilse Wegner and Volkert Haas, kebiri and kepli, kep-ili, at Alalach 7 and Bogatskeu and Mari. hunter, birdcatcher, fowler. The root keep gap means to place, to set, and the ending eri marks a participle and the ending li indicates a profession. Could the Minoan scribe from Chania have used the same orthographic solution as cuneiform scribes had at their disposal? If they wanted to make clear that the vowel a was required, if they had used an e containing syllabic sign. They could, for instance, write p-e to express p. In cuneiform, this orthographic solution was frequently used. The high number of writing variants in cuneiform is partly the result of the habits of scribes and their preferences. It is clear that Minoan scribes tried to use the space on their very small tablets as economically as possible. So if a scribe used a cuneiform-like solution, as I suspect he did in the case of accipiete, KH 10:3-4, it must have been out of necessity. Anyway, it can't be excluded that some scribes have been familiar with reading cuneiform texts, although they had no need for that much more complicated script for their bureaucratic administration. We don't know whether the Minoan palaces kept diplomatic relations with rulers in the Near East, and possibly with the capital of Mitanni, Washu-Qani, and, if so, whether they corresponded with these rulers. Mitanni-style cylinder seals from tombs at Pankalogori and the Armeni cemetery in Crete, made of faience with remnants of blue polish, now in the Museum of Rethymnon, may well provide material evidence for contact between the Empire of Mitanni and Minoan Crete. The date of the tombs, in late Minoan III, seems late, but the seals may have been hereditary goods that came down from generation to generation. Linear A Kuregi, HT 39-2 and HT 117b 1, equals Huregi, Hurrian. It occurs twice at Ayatriada, once in the villa and once in the villaggio. I wonder why some people at Ayatriada are explicitly called Hurrian if all the names there can already be identified as Hurrian. Linear A Kappa, identified as Hurrian Galba, Galab in Semitic, is Aleppo, probably doesn't refer to the famous ancient city in Syria, but is the ancient name of Ayatriada. An explanation might be that the person or persons called Kuregi at Ayatriada perhaps came from Mitanni, maybe an ambassador, envoy, or simply a merchant. The Minoans at Ayatriada, Vaistos and Komos, may have had a tribal Hurrian name, for instance, Kudonians. The linear A form Huregi, Hurrian, is even a more regular form than the forms in the Tushratta letter that offers either Kur Kuruuge or Kurvuuge, the Hurrian land, analyzed as Huroge and Hurwoge by Ilse Wegner. Ilse Wegner, Introduction 54, mentions the Hurrian adjectival relational ethnic suffix ge in Huroge from Hurige, with transition from I to O or with derivational vowel O. Hurrian. Gatoge, Hittite. Eblage, belonging to Ebla. Man, citizen of Ebla, etc. There is also a person at Katotsakro called Gatigi. ZA 14:2 is Gatigi, which means Hittite or the Hittite in Hurrian, with the Hurrian ethnic suffix gi. The sequence used to be transliterated as Kwati 96, as if Linear A sign 62 had the same phonetic value as Linear B qua. If my identification of Linear A Kuregi as Huregi, Hurrian, and of Linear A Kwati 96 ZA 14:2 as Gatigi, analysis Gatigi, man, woman of the land Gati, the Hurrian name for Hittite, is correct, we can observe that the Linear A forms preserved here the original form. Identification of a person called Hittite with the Hurrian suffix gi in the administration of the Palace of Katotsakro is obviously of great historical significance, since it refers to overseas Minoan contact at Katotsakro with Anatolian people of Hittite ethnicity and identity. If we compare all the other Linear A ethnics with the ethnic suffixes gi and ge, there can be no doubt that the identification of signs 96 and 68 as gi is correct. In the next episode, I shall continue my interpretation of the prayers to the gods on Minoan libation tables from peak sanctuaries all over Crete. Thank you very much for your attention. If you are interested in more lectures on the decipherment of Minoan Linear A and wish to be notified as soon as a new episode appears on YouTube, you can freely subscribe to the series. If you enjoyed this episode, your comment will be very much appreciated.